Hi guys, this is Stephen Chung and welcome to another episode of Stevescapes. Today I'm here to talk about the results of the AQSC, that's the Aquascaping Spain contest. This year I had the honor of serving as one of the judges, and it was an honor because people familiar with competitive aquascaping know that Spain has been hot in recent years. In fact, in the IAPLC 2020 this year, they won the Nations Challenge. That means of all the countries that participated, giants including China and Japan, um, which country had top 5 aquascapers with the highest average score? In other words, the best average score, right? Okay, the lowest average score. That was Spain this year, so they dominated. Um, in other words, there's some really amazing layouts in this AQSC, and it was an honor to judge. And today I want to talk about the top 10 aquascapes and deep dive into my comments and expand on them a bit. So I'm only going to talk about the top 10. You can see all the results in the contest, but unfortunately the tabs don't have the names of the individual aquascapers. So I'm just going to read off all the names here, and if I am unable to recall a name in the middle of the video, please forgive me. So, rank 10, Everything Returns by Jose Angel Madrid. Well, also, I don't speak any Spanish, so please forgive my pronunciations. I'm going to mess everything up, but please forgive me. Congratulations to Jose. And then rank 9, Tornahi by Pep Perisas. Rank 8, Where Fairies Sleep by Marco Ceprian Gonzalez. Rank 7, Live Forever by Raul Gargalo. Rank 6, Red Sunrise Bridge by Francisco Jose Paraga Garces. Rank 5, Mangrove River by Ismail Aguilera Soria. Oh, and Ismail was also an organizer for the contest and helped all of us judges in navigating the system and getting our ranks in. Big thank you to Ismail and congratulations on rank 5. Rank 4, Capana Paro by Carlos. Rank 3, The Last Lights of Sunset by Efrain Sequeira Moreno. Rank 2, Kotsushika Hokusai by Albert Escrihuela Caceres. And rank 1, Twilight by Juan Conchales Rufino. So congratulations everyone. These were some really amazing layouts. The overall level in the top scapes from Spain, just incredible this year, so I can't wait to get into these different layouts. So let's start with rank 10, Everything Returns. So amongst the judges, Roger and Josh especially thought that this layout was really incredible. And I can see where they're coming from a composition standpoint. It's really well balanced. You've got the two dark shadows on both sides for high impact, bright center, lines that lead to the middle. In other words, you can really see a lot of the, Fukada-san insights being put together in this layout. For me, this was actually one of my lower ranking works amongst, those who were kind of vying for the top 10. I saw some major issues. If we read my comments, let's see. Very dramatic shapes and beautiful colors. For me though, the wood lacks a sense of nature. You cannot have these well-defined roots without a tree, but the larger pieces above do not read as trees. If you want to make a tree, make a tree. If you want to show dead driftwood, show that. I also believe the stems are too messy and more work could be done to integrate fore, midground, and background, where right now they feel more disconnected and separate. So if you come back, I think this is kind of a hard point to make, especially for people who are used to seeing Amano-san's work, because in the original nature style, there's not too much focus on defining what different things are. It's a bit abstract. Amano-san leaves a lot to interpretation, but Amano-san, what he does do is make sure that the shapes and forms that he shows in his aquascape are very natural. They abide by the rules of nature. But because people kind of imitate his work in the nature style, they don't realize that discipline. And so things like this happen where you have kind of the modern, well stylized, very defined roots. But then you guys, there cannot be roots without a tree. These do not read as trees, and even if they're dead driftwood, I feel like the shapes are a bit off. Like a piece of dead driftwood doesn't have roots to hold it in place. So this piece of wood here, to me, feels like there's nothing holding it up. Um, I don't think that wood should be lying flat. I think that having, you know, diagonal angles and dramatic placement can be good, but it's got to feel natural. Like if you're going to have this piece of wood at this angle, maybe it continues on to about here. Here, wait, let me pull this up in Photoshop. So maybe, you know, maybe it continues on to about here, and then you have more shadow in here. So in that case, you know, it feels like it's anchored enough that it's not, you know, just totally gonna fall over. And also, when you come to this point, I would just go out of the water. Go straight up out of the water. Don't stop halfway through. Don't feel like you're stuck into the boundaries of the aquascape. If you go off the canvas, your impact will be that much stronger. Same here, like these pieces of wood, even if they were dead pieces of driftwood, in other words, if you got rid of the roots down here, then, you know, you'd want to have them anchored enough, or like feel like they're leaning against something, right? Because dead pieces of wood don't have any they don't have anything to anchor them, so it needs to feel like they're leaning on something, and they've, you know, got weight to lean on it. But I think, you know, because these roots are just so beautiful and well defined, I would have gone ahead and you know, finish, instead of trying to make these dead pieces of driftwood read as naturally fallen pieces of driftwood, make it a tree. You know, if you want to go with a tree, make the tree. Let's see, this is not very good pen. Like, you know, go ahead, make the whole form. You have to do what the Indonesian guys do, and dedicate, you know, completely go in 100% to make the actual form of the tree. Its trunk, its branches, everything, and abide by the rules of a tree's anatomy. If you don't go that far, then it's going to read as unnatural, weird. Where do these roots come from? You know, they do, however, serve a very good function in the aquascape. You know, this bright detail in here really helps, you know, bring out the drama of the scape even more. And they're really just beautiful details. If you want to use them, though, you have to make the whole tree. You cannot stop halfway. Even at this angle, like, you know, it's fine to have wood at this angle, but then, you know, you need the trunk, you need the branches, or even if you don't have any branches, you need to, you know, make the trunk and have it keep going out of the water so it feels like the branches would be above the surface of the water. In any case, what I'm saying is you have to abide by the anatomy of the tree, the rules of a tree's anatomy. And you have to show us the whole tree. If you're going to have roots, make us a tree. What I mean by the stems being too unorganized, I feel like, you know, these ones especially, that you can see in the white, that are untrimmed, they just distract me. So I definitely trim them back, get rid of them. It's kind of cool to have details in the brightness, but in this case, I feel like the details that were shown in those one or two loose stems feel undisciplined rather than, you know, as additional details that pull me back. Maybe if you had like small branches instead, and then if you do have small branches, they can't be like these ones here, right? Which don't read as trees. Have small and fine trees that read as trees, and then have those in this white space as the details that suck you in back. But don't just have loose stems that feel undisciplined to try to make details back there. In that case, it's better just to have pure white. Finally, let's see. I said that the midground felt unfinessed. That's because if you look in the original picture, like this is just a flat. It feels like it's just pasted on, right? There's no sense of nature. There's no finesse to this. So what what you have to do is you have to try to form natural shapes. Let's see. Wait, no. It would be better to clone snap this to give you guys an idea. So in other words, you don't want just a flat strip. You don't want just a flat strip of stuff. You want to have shadow and plants and you know, make the plants feel like they're creeping. Maybe there's one bit of it off here to the side, but you get what I'm saying, right? You don't make plants that feel like they're copied and pasted. Feel plants like that. Make plant shapes that feel like they've grown into the environment. Finesse the shape, finesse the integration between midground plants and the hardscape around them. So that's my thoughts. You want to have midground plants that are more finessed into the scenery. If you have roots, make trees. If you have branches, make trees. The point is that if you have bits of anatomy that exist from a living tree, you have to abide by the anatomy of the tree. And details should be ones that, you know, show off your skill rather than show a lack of discipline. Okay, so I was pretty harsh, but that's because there's a lot to be impressed about here, and just these small things, these small attention to details can really improve the level of this aquascape. So I hope to see, you know, on Facebook, Jose said that he learned a lot from my comments. I hope that this video and the comments will help bring him to an even higher level next year. So, next aquascape by Tornam Torhi. Tornahi. Sorry. It's okay, so getting to my comments. Very attractive parts and attractive overall composition shape. It's really interesting. I just want big shadows like don't. If this layout had shadows not the same tone left to right, I would rate it very highly. So what I'm trying to get at here, guys, is if you try squinting, there is a lot of detail in here, right? The detail of different plants and shapes and stuff. But if you squint your eyes and look at it in a vague sense, the entire layout looks flat. Maybe the better way to do it would be to show you guys. So if I take this, I go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. If I go like, maybe that's too much, but if I bring it up to here, right? Then you can see that when you take the details out, the layout feels extremely flat. Okay? I mean, if we do the same thing here, I mean, I've drawn in a bunch of stuff, but still, if we do the same Gaussian blur on Jose's layout, you still see a lot of layers and 3D. You feel sucked into the background. In fact, this aquascape is much better when you take out the details, because compositionally, the use of light and dark tone, it's very strong, and there's clearly defined different areas of the aquascape. Whereas in this rank 9 aquascape, if you take out the details, the entire thing feels completely flat. And that doesn't get fixed when you bring the details in. You really need to have a change in tone to have a sense of depth. So I think if I make this black and white, you'll see what I mean even more. So when you take out the colors now, it's completely gone. The entire aquascape is gone. Whereas, if I do the same thing here, it's still really interesting, right? you can still see the outlines of shapes, and you can see the brightness in the background, and you can see the lines that the roots make to lead you into the midground. It's still a very interesting aquascape. But if we take out the fine details between plants and we take out the colors, to me, when I look at an aquascape like this, it just looks completely flat. It looks like I've been shown a rectangle. Maybe like in the Latin cultures, they're more sensitive to color. You know how Brazilians and then Spanish, Portuguese, they tend to like really passionate colors, really bright contrasts. But I think you cannot just have the color. You cannot just have the contrast in color. You also need the contrast in tone. And if you don't get that, your layout will feel flat. It will feel like it's lacking in real visual interest. Okay, so let's move on to the next aquascape, where fairies sleep. Now, this aquascape I really liked, and you can see that in my comments. Absolutely excellent. The bold, powerful shadows, the amazing pathwork, empty midground space that invite me in, as well as the background that piques curiosity of my imagination. Beautiful, naturally shaped plant groups. This work is simply excellent. My number 2 of the contest. If I had any gripes, number 1, Anubias in the front right is too big. Number 2, left upper corner feels like dead space. At this point, the layout makes me want to crop out the left side. This would be fixed by just adding one more big piece of wood somewhere. So, at rank 8, it's obvious that the other judges didn't feel that the other judges didn't feel as strongly about this aquascape as I did. But if I go into their comments, it feels kind of nitpicky a little bit. I don't mean to disparage anyone because, sorry, I'm not going to translate Luca's comments, so I don't actually know what he said. But Roger's case, I would be a fairy if I could sleep here. The reflection on grape is top. Do leave more space of white sand at the front. Yeah, no, that critique I understand. Like, if there were another path of white over here, if this were more like a triangle-shaped white foreground, whereas it feels like just a line here. So we do want a little bit more, but I feel like that's a minor critique because there's a lot of open space here in the middle. Beautiful open space, and the white path is very strong and very naturally shaped. There is an angle to this line here. It's not just completely flat, and also a brightness to the top of these stones that kind of connects. And given all of that, I don't feel like the foreground is particularly lacking in brightness, and I do feel like it has a good natural shape. Still, I think there's room for improvement there, and agree with Roger's critique overall. But it does seem like a very minor one. For Josh, a very bold concept. I like the 3D effect created at the depth. See, Josh also understands how much impact and how many layers of depth this scape has. But the main wood seems to be too clean. I miss little bits of plants on the main wood. With such clean wood, okay, that, yeah, I get that. That's a legitimate critique. Maybe a little bit more moss. I would have used Ricardia, little bits here and there. But overall, like, there is planting incorporated in and around the wood. I don't feel like it's just completely gone. And there are places in nature where wood tends to be more clean, like inside of a very cold, mountain pool or something like that. Yeah, there might be some algae, but there are environments in nature where wood finds itself almost pristinely clean, and I don't think it's too much of a stretch. Maybe because Josh is from Malaysia and is more comfortable with tropical themes and very hot, warm environments and those types of natural scapes. This type of lack of wabi-sabi greenery incorporated into the wood stands out even more starkly to him. For me, I like to work with both. I'm from Hawaii, so I work with tropical theme very comfortably, 2018 layouts, and also My 2018 layout is more of a tropical theme aquascape, but my 2019 layout, is based off of Japanese mountain stream, and I live in Japan, and I like to expand, the breadth of what I can do in terms of, um, you know, temperature, in terms of, um, the heat of the environment that I express. I like to work with both temperate and tropical themes, and for me, when I think about, a cold environment, a cold aquascape, and also knowing that the layouter is from Europe, if you look at a lot of Adam's works, um, and this aquascape is from Spain, not from one of the northeastern European countries, but still, there's probably room for inspiration from colder climates and countries, and the wood's pristineness doesn't bother me so much in this example. And even if it is an issue, I feel like it's a minor one. The more impressive things about this aquascape that these big bold shadows, beautiful shapes, like the shapes of these pieces of wood are just incredible. And then the contrast between the darker pieces up here and this one light one, and then the diagonal shapes coming in from either side to create the structure of the path, and then this natural line coming up into the middle, and the viewpoint, the viewpoint in the background with the stems just makes me want to stare into it more. I just love this aquascape. It's really done incredibly well with all the fundamentals. From a technique perspective, the critique would be, as I mentioned, that this upper left-hand corner is kind of lacking in weight. It's kind of lacking in life. It doesn't feel like it's being used to its full capacity, which is another critique I could see Josh making, because he, is very strong on trying to make every bit of the aquascape do work, and right now this side is not really doing as much work. But as I said, even if you just included like one more big piece of wood up here, like this maybe, just doing a bit of drawing here. I don't know, maybe like one little branch coming up like this. And it's like, boom, we're good. Then you get what you need out of this aquascape. But or maybe something like this, for instance. But even without that, even the original aquascape has, I would say, more than enough. More than enough in terms of, just the details in this path, and then the depth and layers. The two things I would critique outside of that one piece of technique, and Anubias being too big on the right side. This has to be smaller. But I mean, why not use the same Anubias on both sides? But I guess beyond the technical aspects of the aquascape, I do kind of miss story. It seems like while the plant use is beautiful, it has a real atmosphere to it. There's no real honing in on some story. There's no honing in on some bigger message, some truth about the beauty of nature. And also I feel like the fish are too drab, too boring, and aren't really adding to the aquascape. Those two things, like this layouter is clearly so strong on the composition and the technique and use of plants that he's ready to jump to that next higher level of really putting together a stronger story and putting together stronger, well, you know, fish that can add to that story, right? So storytelling is what I really want to see coming next out of this aquascaper. Even though, you know, there's so much beautiful atmosphere to it, it almost feels like there is a story. Where fairies sleep. But, and the other thing is, this aquascape has just such a strong sense of nature. The way the plants have been incorporated, the way everything creeps together, the strong sense of nature is what I really appreciate about this aquascape. Okay, so let's move on to the next. 9. Live forever. So I think my comments are really the best way to describe my feelings about this aquascape. The lines of this layout are extremely attractive. The lines of wood and the lines of fish. I could have rated this scape much higher if these beautiful lines were not consumed by too much consistency of blocky green areas. Where you have these beautiful lines, you should exaggerate their strength by making strong shadows and light along those lines. So what am I getting at? When I say blocky shapes, let's see here. So like, let me outline this. What shape do you see when I draw that line? What shape do you see if I outline this part? Those are the two big offenders, but you know, even kind of here, you see squares. This aquascape has so many squares, especially in the planting area, and that is a big problem because squares feel extremely flat and they feel unnatural. And you know, they really take away from the beautiful lines that are drawn by the wood. So, as I mentioned, these lines are so organic and so nice and sweeping. Beautiful, right? But these squares of plants really take away from it. What you really want is, you know, to get, like, think of, if I just add some shadows into these squarish planted areas, you know, break up the squares. Make sure we don't have squares by using trimming to make shadows and lines instead of blocky shapes. I mean, look how much better that seems just by putting in that much. And then when I said that he should exaggerate the lines more, like, there are lines, but they are really not that strong because they're not amped up by more shadow and more brightness. Like, so even if I just put shadow underneath the lines and then on top of them, you know, instead I want to dodge brighten. So then just increasing contrast, right? Brightening the brights. I think part of the issue is that it's all the same tone of green. Alright, 1 second, guys. So yeah, the other issue is that it's all the same tone of green. Well, this layout is not the only offender, but you really don't want to completely kill yellow as a color. Let me see here. Like, I mean, it's good to have some kind of tone, color tone to your aquascape so that, you know, you're setting the story. But, I mean, having a bluish overall tone to your scape can add it can add a sense of atmosphere to it. You can get kind of, a tonal identity for the aquascape. But if you completely kill yellow, the entire scape will feel more flat. Like, I feel that you do need a little bit of yellow. Maybe not as much as I've drawn in here. But some of this green has to be kept, yellowish in tone. And if you completely kill yellow, your scape will feel much flatter than it could otherwise. So those are the things I think need to be improved in this aquascape. Don't make square shapes. Use trimming, use hardscape in order to break that up. Have lines and triangular shapes, and then where you have lines, emphasize them with shadows underneath them and stronger highlights on top of them. Yellow is a good color for increasing the power of those highlights even more. So next we have Red Sunrise Bridge by Francisco Jose Paraga Garces. This aquascape, let's see, again, going back to my comments, clearly a standout of the contest and one of the most memorable of the Brazilian Latin style aquascapes this year. The stonework, reds, and ripples are so dramatic and stunning. My feeling is that I want some bright green somewhere as relief to the eye, but also because it would act as an accent that would make your reds even stronger. Also, the biggest problem areas of this layout is in the front right, which is too flat, straight on, square shaped. So actually a similar critique to the previous aquascape, but this one doesn't have nearly as many problems in the dimensions I'm talking about. The square shape I'm talking about is this right here, right? It's not a square, but this is square shaped over here. And even if you have a triangle to the left of it, if this part feels square-ish, then the shape itself will feel square-ish. You could say the same thing about this side actually too. Like, this is also kind of, what is the name of this type of shape? Anyway, a box with a triangle on the end of it, right? And you really want to avoid even hints at this type of square shape at all. And again, that could be avoided easily by using shadows to break up the lines of that square. Boom, done. And if you had one up here, then you see now you don't have those square-ish type of shapes. And then my next critique was that we needed some yellow. I mean, this is close to yellow, but you can tell not quite yellow, right? So maybe a bit of it here, here, smaller bits of I don't know, but just this small amount of it in the center makes everything pop so much more. These are my only two major critiques. Otherwise, it's just a perfectly executed Brazilian Latin style layout. Definitely one of the standouts of the style in this year. Okay, let's move on to the next. Right, so Mangrove River by Ismail. Now, this is an aquascape I definitely want to talk about because it is really deserving of praise, especially in the natural recreation of roots. But, guys, again, we're going to come to my previous critique. If you make roots, you must make a tree. Alright, let's go down to the comments. The bottom half of this aquascape is beautiful, or maybe I should say the bottom triangle of this scape that includes all the root work and white vanishing point is stunning. But it has to be matched with an upper half that isn't just blurred green-orange, but is broken up at least by one or two big, thick shadow trunks, or in any case, tree trunks that are clearly visible. Roots do not exist without trees, and more work needs to be done to show us the trees. Also, you pull back and remove even the roots in just one or two places. Right now, there is some density of roots Right now there's the same density of roots everywhere, making it feel unnatural and taking away from where there should be really excellent balance. So much potential here that could be dramatically improved with simple work. Okay, so what I got at was, when I say the bottommost triangle, I mean this triangle. Let's see here. So everything down here is really beautiful, but everything above here, not so much. Specifically in, this canopy area, it's just completely, it tells me that, like, the same, passion, the same effort was not put into the top of the aquascape as the bottom of the aquascape. They feel like they were done by different aquascapers. Or, it could be because Ismail was focusing on his theme of roots, the mangrove forest, that he put a ton of effort into doing this expression. But on the other hand, if I take this out, this scape is, really unimpressive. It really, does not feel like anything special. So the bottom, bottom third, the bottom triangle is, this pathwork through the roots, and of course the expression of the roots themselves, and then this area where you see just a little bit of roots in that white background. It's all so lovely, it feels really natural. But if you're going to have roots, you must show a tree. If you just have, and there is kind of the silhouette of trees. Their form kind of exists in bits and pieces amongst the somewhat overgrown Pinatophyta. But if you just had, like, you see where the roots are existing. If they just continued, you just had trunks that continued up, not everywhere, but just like, one or two places, it would be enough, And I'm just blocking this in right now. These aren't perfect solutions. For all the kind of sketches I do on people's work, guys, just keep in mind that I'm only throwing up, my instinctual sense about what would be good. But there is a better solution here, for sure. For someone who really understood this layout and was working on it for a long time and really wanted to show it at its best, they would come to better ideas about how to do the things I'm suggesting. Like, the positioning of the trunks could be, further optimized, I'm sure. I'm sure you could find a better way to show this, but still, I feel like just my instinctual throw-ups here are improvements on the original work, and something that Ismail should consider if he makes another aquascape like this. And then when he does it, do an even better job than what I'm throwing up here right now. So if you see, you just add these trunks. Now the expression of trees is so much strong, and maybe just a little bit more dark trunk revealed over here. Still keep some of that green covering it, but just a little bit more of the form of trees would make this layout way stronger. I do think this white path could be stronger too. We want to see a little bit more of it here. And it's kind of what I was getting at in my point, that there's just the same consistent weight of roots everywhere here in the foreground. Even if I say the roots themselves are very well done, like, here, let me draw pink lines over all of them so you guys can see. there's no change in tone here. There's no change in tone or pacing. It's the same distance apart from each and every single root. That feels unnatural. Like in nature, there would be places where the roots grow in strong, and there would be places where they're pulled back, where they're not able to reach. There's dips in and out. That's what we call natural chaos. So like, I feel if this root and this area is going to be strong, then this one here is really unnecessary. And you want to weaken this one, or like, maybe take this, remove this one, and this one. You want to create an imbalance so that there are places where the roots are strong, and then there are places where they're weak. So we want to get rid of just a few of these. You do want details in shadow. Maybe bring in a couple more plants. Let's see, but maybe make them dark green so that they're not completely eating up the shadow. And you don't want the same weight of, because this also feels flat, right? The entire top of the aquascape, because there's no change in pace. It's all just the same tone of green and orange. It feels extremely flat up here. And it feels flat in the bottom because the roots are too consistently taking up space. There's no area where there are no roots. If you break the top up by having in these big trunks that also express the tree, bring out the form of the tree, and you pull back on the roots to have a more natural rhythm, where in some places they show and other places they don't, then the whole aquascape will be so much stronger. So I hope that this is useful for Ismail if he decides to make another similar aquascape to this in the future. Alright, so moving on to the next layout. Cabana Paro by Carlos. Yes. Now this layout, I definitely found it memorable when I saw it at the IAPLC as well. I think it's a very powerful montage to Amano Takashi, to the nature aquarium style, the traditional style, these beautiful Altum angels, and these amazing pieces of wood. Getting to my comments, let's see here. So absolutely stunning, a layout that does everything right except the fish are too big. Still, I would rather have fish that are too big and add to the layout story than fish being ho-hum, forgettable cardinal tetras or rasboras that are just there for the sake of being there. This layout would also be stronger if the two main wood reached all the way to the front corners instead of stopping part way. So opinions are going to be disparate on this layout. I've heard from high-level aquascapers that this tank doesn't work at all without Altum angels. That might be so, or at least definitely the coloring of angels. Their shape seems to be adding to this aquascape as well. Well, Ono-san pointed out to me, look Steven, what if you take out the angels? Then the scape is completely forgettable. That's true as well. I still feel like their form is too big. As I mentioned in my comments, like it's better to have a fish that's too big but still adding to the story, as these are. But it would be better still to have fish that are adding to the story and are more appropriately shaped to match the space of it. I think, well, you could buy yourself some smaller angels. That's the moral of the story here. Fukara-san actually did have much smaller angels in his aquascape, and I felt like it worked much better. Let's see here to try and fix what I did, so we can get a sense of how it would look. I do think that would be shadow. Okay, and then bring back some of these plants. Then my other critique is that I think that the wood stops short, and I definitely feel that way. That we really want to see this piece of wood extend all the way out to the top. It doesn't have to be, like one of Josh's aquascapes. It doesn't have to be a copy of one of Josh's works, but I want to see the wood, even if it's a small branch, reach up to the top. And then of course if on one side it's like big, bold, you know, that would be even better. And then maybe add some greens back. Yeah, does it seem like Spanish aquascapers really despise yellow or something? I'm kidding. I'm kidding, but where are a bit more of those green and bright yellow colors? The other thing I felt looking at this layout again was the mid-ground. It's so weird because, you know, whatever is going on over here is really great, right? This is like really natural, beautiful foreground kind of mix of plants. It has that wabi-sabi expression that I think Amano-san really appreciate. But this is just like a flat lawn completely, right? Because this is what it looked like originally. Just keep doing whatever is going on over here, going on to this side. So like, really just grab this. Oh my god. Oh my god, that's so much better. Oh Jesus. Wow. Look at that, guys. And then maybe take these guys. Alright. Really wonderful. You want to reuse some plants in more than one place. And I think like you need to have a natural sense of the weight of plants, like where they will pop up. So if this one is here, make another group over here, kind of, and maybe a small one over here. Like there's some sort of balance, right? I think that's a huge improvement. The other point I've heard about this aquascape is that the background is not bright enough. That is definitely true. I mean, I think he was trying to make some type of stylish expression by using this flat blue background, but it's not working. I'm just gonna go ahead and image adjustment, replace color. Okay, and then these two plant. Ono-san commented to me that he thought these two plant groups, boom, right here, were just really out of place when we were talking about aquascapes in the TAU analysis meeting and going over the results of the IAPLC. I didn't see that when I was judging, and maybe I just need to work more on my plant sense, but to people who feel like these two are natural, that's one thing that could be changed, I think. But overall, these are to me the more important changes that need to be done. Some brightening up on this platform here to make it feel farther away. Brightening definitely of the background. Take the pieces of wood and bring them all the way up to the top corners of both sides. Angels that are smaller, and this foreground needs to be made to feel more natural. Do all of this, and this layout is definitely like a top 15 IAPLC type of work. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so rank 3, we're getting into the real cream of the crop here. Let's see. The Last Sunset by Efrain Sequeira Moreno. Definitely an amazing work, and it's really clear the moment that you look at this where he wants us to look, what he wants us to do. Man, this space back here where the sticks are touching the surface of the water, it's really just magical how the light is shining through, and like light shimmering through trees in the fall or something. And all the lines of the aquascape lead there. The planting, I really like these hydrocotyles on the top of the rock. I agree with some comments I've heard that there should have been hydrocotyles on this side as well, but they are doing a lot of work. The plants are really adding to the atmosphere. Black neon tetras, I think that this was a good choice. They fit very well, and they're helping lead the eye into this space. The color combination between these fish just really pop in this aquascape, and they make the whole aquascape feel like it's popping out more. Very good job on fish selection. Juncus repens, man, it is doing a very good job. There's just so much to compliment about this work. It's really great. The only thing that I guess, like, if I had to be stingy, again, I think more work could be done on the expression of the anatomy of the tree. I don't feel like this, like, there has to be a clear decision as to whether or not these are trees. And if they are trees, then, you know, some of the, like, this definitely doesn't feel like a tree. That definitely doesn't feel like a tree. So, in that case, the form of these twigs, because this feels like it wants to be a tree, but then these really feel like twigs, right? In the background, it really feels like twigs. In the foreground, it feels like we have shapes that want to be trees. But again, like, not quite. I feel like, you know, just a little bit of change in shape. Like, and then this doesn't feel tree-like to me, I think. I don't know. This is really, maybe this just comes down to nature sense. But outside of the scapers from Indonesia, and then of course Fukada-san's longing, outside of China and Indonesia, I feel like the aquascapers of most of the countries need to work more on their you know, work of tree forms if they're going to make layouts that have trees. Like, I don't feel like this is quite right. So like Singapore, Malaysia, China, Indonesia, those guys definitely know how to make trees. Most aquascapers in other countries, honestly, at this point, still make me kind of cringe a little bit. Like, it doesn't, like, the shapes feel a little bit off. But overall here, you know, we have roots that go into a big trunk. This is much closer to natural than the other treescapes that we've seen in the Spanish conquest up until this point. And regardless of whether or not you think the twigs in the background read as trees, it's still extremely magical, and the whole space has just a very strong sense of nature. Excellent use of color, layers. This is just a really great layout, and definitely deserving of rank 3. Congratulations. Alright, so let's move on to the final 2 aquascapes. First, starting with Katsushika Hokusai by Albert Esrijuedes Caceres. Sorry about the pronunciations, dude. It's impossible. Anyway, this aquascape, wow, that's all you have to say when you first see it, right? What an incredible impression. Definitely an unforgettable aquascape. And what's really amazing here, guys, what's really needed to be absorbed by people who, you know, see this aquascape is thinking about the dedication it took to make this, the effort it took to make this, how far you have to go in order to put this together, the dedication to your theme, seeing it all the way through to the end, leaving no stone unturned, pushing it to the utmost limits. That is the spirit that's needed for a top aquascaper, and something that is dramatically demonstrated here. It's something everyone should remember and take away from this, how to make an aquascape that is unforgettable and one that, you know, sees its story through to the end. That said, you know, I actually had mixed feelings about this aquascape. This was rank 4 or 3, I think, on my list. I can't remember. I did rank it below a few though. I think the best way to get the right balance is to read my comments off of AQSC, because I tried to choose my words carefully. I commend the aquascaper for making such a dramatic aquascape that shows real dedication to story and excellence of execution. The bold shadows and ferocious center spiral make for a big impact scape, and it isn't one anyone could forget. That said, I come to the question of, does this have a sense of nature? And that's the biggest problem. Also, I don't like how the fish feel really boxed in. This work wants a smaller species. That said, I would rather have a fish that's too big but adds to the story, in this case by reflecting the green color, further enhancing the sense of waves in the ocean, than a fish that is just forgettable. Also, just a bit of yellow-green somewhere in the midground would have really made this work pop even more. Maybe hard to believe, but the lack of yellow-green does make this work feel a bit flat to me. It's flat in terms of color contrast, even if tone contrast is exceptional. So, to break that down a bit, I'm going to say that before I saw the title of this aquascape, and unlike most people who saw it, and most people probably don't know what Katsushika Hokusai is. It's a famous Japanese painting of waves. But I think that for most people who had no idea what the reference was and had, even if they heard the title, it didn't help them. And for me, as a judge for AQSC, I was able to see this aquascape before it came out in IAPLC, and I did see this aquascape without its title, before reading the title, looking at it, and thinking about it. And at that point, I'm going to say I had no idea what it was. I didn't know that these were waves. I didn't get the idea that it was a wave theme. The fish didn't help me with that initially. After I saw the title, I felt like it was kind of wave-like, and that, you know, this reflection of green on the fish's body kind of added to that. Once I got that they were waves, then this aquascape was a lot more impressive to me. But unless you told me that, I wouldn't have realized it. And I feel like, you know, in order to really be a strong storyteller, you have to be able to get the story across without mentioning it. Now, that said, I don't think you're going to be able to do more with the theme than Albert did here. There's probably no room left to try and make it even easier to understand for the reader. I mean, you know, there's an upper limit when you're doing kind of this abstract work that waves are not made out of stone, and they're never going to be made out of stone, and it's never going to be a literal recreation, right? So in that sense, the idea of making a theme that will 100% be readable to any audience with this idea is basically impossible. But, you know, he didn't have to choose the theme. He did choose it. He did decide to express it this way, and so I have to, you know, grade its merits compared to aquascapes that are able to, you know, see their story all the way to the end without an explanation. And at that point, I feel like, you know, I feel like we are lacking a bit of sense of nature. Even if you do have waves, you know, waves in nature do not face each other like this for the most part. Anyone who's gone to the ocean, lived on the beach, knows that, you know, waves usually come from one direction. I guess unless it's like the parting of the Red Sea by Moses or something, but compositionally it's incredibly strong. Expressing the theme, I mean, you're gonna face challenges there, and as I mentioned, like, just the center area, I feel like a bit of yellow would have really added to it. So those are my impressions. The areas I feel like this aquascape could be improved, but, you know, it's still an incredible work, completely unforgettable. Congratulations on AQSC Rank 2 and IAPLC Rank 4, and I'm looking forward to competing against you again next year. Then finally, we have number 1, Juan Conchales. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Wow. So
So again, maybe the best way to describe my feelings for this aquascape are to go back and read the comments. Um, Absolutely breathtaking, undeniable, absolute number one by a huge margin for me. Clear focus, clear story. The idea of a sunrise sunset has been done before, but always felt tacky until this aquascape. It's 100% readable and puts me in that place. The dramatic shadows, clear viewpoint, and fish selection that enhances the story. This is what we want to see in a high-level contest tank. It's hard to recall a work that uses color so effectively in service of a story. If I had any gripe, it would be that the trees' shapes are a bit unnatural, and that while this layout is strong in the big picture, more finesse could have been made on some of the details. Still, absolutely one of my favorites. One of my most memorable aquascapes from 2020. Yeah, so I mean, you can read the comments from the other judges, but this is just an outstanding work by Juan. And any of the critiques I could make, they're really just nitpicking. Like, I think I like, for instance, I mentioned the shape of the trees. Like, this doesn't really, I mean, it's better than a lot of the other examples we saw previously because you got branches, a trunk, and roots. So at least the parts are there, right? It feels a little bit off in terms of like the actual anatomy of a tree, but it's close enough, you know, and the brain has no trouble reading this as a tree. One also understood my comments when we discussed this aquascape. He and I actually had a bit of back and forth sharing our aquascapes and getting feedback from each other after the IAPLC submissions were done. And like the areas up here, like from my understanding, Juan was actually pretty strapped for time this year. So while like his works tend to be very like his previous works were really focused on details, and this year is like the opposite. Some of the details seem a bit like it's like this, like the stonework and stuff here could have been broken into smaller pieces and been a little bit more refined. There's actually less fine detail in this aquascape compared to Juan's previous works, but the big picture work is on another level. Like his story and his big structure is absolutely fantastic in this work. And maybe he didn't have the time he wanted to go in and refine some of the details, but guys, the big picture is what really matters, and that's why this is definitely Juan's best work yet. Though I mean, in terms of the IAPLC, for him, it might be just one more entry into the top 27, and then, but I think, you know, this AQSC result really speaks to the, in my opinion, the pedigree of this aquas, like, and the fish selection, guys. I'm gonna make a video talking about how to do fish in a high-level contest, but, you know, you want them to be seen, you want them to play a role, and you want them to help you tell the story, which is, you know, this is definitely the best fish use out of any of the layouts in the contest, and that's, to me, that is a point that's really important to me. So, like, if we compare to Juan's aquascape from last year my critique to him was that, well, the center area feels a bit unnatural, but the really sticking point is that even though he has all this red and hot color and all these, he wanted to show off the beauty of these stem plants. Like, when I asked him why, right, like he didn't really have an answer except for it's an autumn inspired aquascape, you know, which is fair enough, but there's not a whole lot of thought to, there wasn't a whole lot of thought to why the colors are being used. Just that, you know, he wanted hot colors and use them as much as possible, even though, you know, you don't need them here, right, in order to make it, you don't need the reds over here to make an autumn theme. In fact, it's kind of weird to have them there, and it just seemed like too much color without enough reason for why you need the color. But he really took that advice to heart, I think, because this layout, man, guys, I mean, I have no confidence in my ability to do something like this. I probably should put more into thought about what I do with color in my aquascapes and effective use of red, but this is like top level. Like you can scour the recent years of IAPLC, and I don't think you will find another layout that has as much thought put into why the red, why this why this color tone, why this semblance of color. Just like this is really effective use of color, not just for the sake of being colorful, but for color choice in service of telling a story. And I think out of 100 people, 100 will know right off the bat that this is about a sunrise or sunset, even if they don't get that it's African twilight without the title and Juan's explanation. Just 100% nailing the concept of a sunrise or sunset with these beautiful twilight colors and beautiful tones throughout the aquascape. You notice in this one too, even yellow and green are both effectively used, and the slight purple tone of the Seiryū stones when put under the lighting for this aquascape. This is one that everyone needs to remember and everyone needs to reference, I think, going forward. So definitely huge congrats to Juan. Actually, congrats to all of the competitors from AQSC, and especially these top 10 guys. They really put their work together. They really made some great works. So congrats all around. It was a tremendous honor to judge this contest. I hope that I have an opportunity, maybe with AQSC, maybe with some other contests going forward. I also judged the French contest too, so I think I will do a similar video to break down those results, even though they've been out for a while. So stay tuned, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and hopefully I'll see you soon with another episode of Stevescapes. Take it easy.